Menorah
and Diana Rude,
presents every
who
day
was
for 8
representing
days, which
the
the children like.
kids. Love
They
that.
love
Of
that,
course,
yes.
we're happy to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
We always start with where
I've
were you
always wanted
born
to
and
go to the
raised?
temple every
Okay, well that's
Sabbath.
easy.
I was born
Even
in San
before they went to the
Francisco
change
and
to
raised in San
Orthodox,
Francisco.
We're always
My
quite religious,
father
I'd say.
and mother were both
How
also
many
born in the same
synagogues
city.
are practicing
Although my
in the
father's
greater
people
Sacramento
came
area?
from Greece, and
I'd have to give.
I
I'd have to
and my mother's
run them out
people were
off.
from
It's,
Russia,
uh,
Temple
Romania.
Orishon, and anyway, and I was I
and
stayed in
there's,
San
B'nai
Francisco until I
Israel
was
and,
19.
Mosaic Law.
And then I
B'nai
got
Israel is
married,
a,
and we
Reform
moved to
and
England
Mosaic
for
Law is
7, no,
conservative.
actually 8 years.
And Ora Rishon, I think it's
because
Reform,
my
I'm not sure.
and then
Husband,
there's the
uncle
Knesset Israel
had a
is
large
Orthodox,
agricultural holding. He
and,
leased
the
in northern
Chabad
England. So
is Orthodox.
we lived there, and my
Beth
son was
Shalom
about
Reform.
did I
8
miss
years
any?
old when we returned,
I don't
and my
think
daughter
so.
was
Five or
actually
six or
born
seven
in
there. I
6.
didn't. I should
Yeah,
have. Did
something
you
like
pick up
that,
any
yeah.
accents? And
I think I did a little bit, but
if
my
you're
son
Jewish,
really did.
do you
we have a
say-
tape recording
Did I mention
somewhere
B'nai Israel? I hope I
of
did.
him
You did.
talking,
Oh, good.
and
What
he
am
has
I
a very
missing?
strong
if you're
British
Jewish,
accent.
do you say?
And the words,
I'm
though,
going to
too,
go
are
to the
different.
conservative,
You know, like,
or I'm going to go
instead
to
of
the
a trunk,
Orthodox,
it's a boot
and
and a
I'll
car.
stay
and,
there, or
just different,
might you go
words
to
that are used.
different
Of course,
places, or
we've
do you
been
go
in
to ones
England.
that
The
are
lorry
closest to
instead
you
of
in
the,
the neighborhood
truck.
you live?
No,
That's
Several
very
times, and they
individual.
always say,
that
you know, we
question.
Brits and you Yanks. and
right.
they always chuckle. Do you have brothers and sisters?
No, I don't. I
You're
know
an only
several
child.
people who I'm an only child. belong
Are
to
your
one
parents still
temple
alive?
and then
No,
have
they're
an
not,
associate
unfortunately.
membership in
Hey.
another.
Were you raised in a
Because they might
Jewish
want
home?
to,
No,
like
that's
somebody-
an interesting
no,
question.
someone I know
My
belongs
mother,
to B'nai Israel, the
since
Reform Temple,
in
but
Judaism,
sometimes
it's
wants to go to Mosaic Law, which is a
matrilineal
little
descent,
more
and so
strict, you know,
she's Jewish
the
by her
conservative, which is a little more
family
observant.
history, but she didn't
So,
practice.
just kind
her
of a very
parents didn't
individual
really
thing.
practice, except
Some people have
her
a
mother
preference
was a
for one
singer,
rabbi over
and
another,
she
so they
sang
be
at
willing
the
to drive
temple,
across town to get to
occasionally
hear that
Temple
person.
Emmanuel in San Francisco.
So just
Now,
And-
as opposed
but other
to
than that,
being
my mother doesn't have much
Jewish,
memory of
from
you know
your
going to
posterity
the
and your
temple.
heritage
And,
and flowing
when
in
I was
both
born,
directions,
it was
to
around the Second World
practicing
War.
Jewish
and
faith religion.
as you know, there was
Would you
the
say the
Holocaust
Jewish
and,
faith
prejudice
religion
and all
in
that,
Sacramento
and
is
my
in good shape and
mother
alive
was
and well? And
wanted me
doing
baptized Catholic. And my father and mother agreed to do that.
It is,
because
it-
although my
there's-
father
it-
was Greek,
this is a very confusing
JCRC
story, I'm
th-
sorry, but I'm
is,
trying to explain it in a
one of
simple
our
way.
roles is
Anyway,
to
my father
try to build community.
was Greek,
Jewish
and he
community.
occasionally went to the Greek Orthodox
and
Church,
in
but
Sacramento,
in San Francisco it was
particularly,
far away.
it's a congregation
and the Catholic Church
driven
was closer. So I
community.
got baptized Catholic,
So the
and I remember
congregations are
some
very
of my
active,
earliest
and
memories.
They do a lot
was
of
my
good
father
things.
taking me to a Catholic church.
But there's
on
there's
Sundays.
something we see that
And
there's
then
a
he's,
need
I guess,
for
kind
more,
of got a
little tired of that.
coming
so
together as a
I always
community.
seem to be drawn
And,
to
that's something
going somewhere
Lydia
for
Ingram,
faith
who's the chair of Jewish
association,
Relations Council
for a
now,
faith-based association.
and I have been talking about
and
about
there's
how
a
we
church
could
around the
improve
corner
that
called
and
Church
to
of the
build,
Brethren,
which is
community
was
and
an
also
offshoot of the
education.
Quakers. Education about
So I would take myself there, and I did that continually
Judaism
until
itself, and also
about the time I got
education about
married.
Israel.
So you pursued God and
Yes,
believed
there's
in
an
God,
effort
and,
to
have a
and
sister
the
city
religious practice was
Ashkelon
Right,
important
was
to you.
important to me, and
Don't ask
also
me
my
where that is
mother.
exactly. I don't know exactly where it is.
Well,
It's
that's-
just-
that's-
But
that's a
anyway,
cool
but
concept.
she was
It is,
spiritual,
yes.
and
So,
she did
so
a lot
there's
of
a lot of
reading.
things going on.
She believed in reincarnation,
and
she'd
the
always
other
talk to me
priority
about
we
those
have is
subjects.
interfaith.
I think that's
building interfaith,
and that's
part of the
something I'm
reason why
very
I got that
interested in.
awareness
In fact, I'd
was
like to
her
talk about that a little
conversations
bit about
with
my
me.
interest.
Okay, I'll
What
come
did
back
you
to
do
this
for
hobbies and fun, those kinds of things?
the
growing up
Interfaith
in San
Council
Francisco?
the last several
I love the
Christmases
beach.
and
We
Easters,
lived,
which of course
about,
are
let's see,
Christian
20
holidays.
About
have,
20 blocks from the beach.
gathered
and
sleeping
my mother and I
bags
would
to give
walk
to the
down to the
homeless
sand and have
out on North
picnics.
C
And
Street. And
I
so
love
far, the last,
skating
I'd say
and,
the last 2
I
years,
liked
we've gathered
volleyball.
about 3,000
not, I don't consider myself
sleeping
very
bags and
athletic,
about
athletic,
1,500
but I love
mats.
walking.
And when the
I love
people
nature,
have,
and
when they're
so
cold,
I did things like that.
and the ocean is
And the
magical,
ocean is
thick,
magical.
warm,
Yes.
it's
It
a
is.
wonderful
It's,
thing.
it always has been.
And,
Oh, wonderful.
How about
The Jewish
friends?
people
I mean, did you
rolled
have
in on a
a
couple of occasions
particular
with sleeping
girlfriend
bags
growing
to help
up,
out,
or
and
did you run,
I'm
some
not
girls
only
run in
impressed,
these
but
little
I'm
gangs
touched.
of
Yes.
3 or 4 or
Step
5?
I've always had a
Christian
lot of friends. I
Now,
had one really good
let's
friend
talk
that I
interfaith
met
for
in the
just a
3rd
moment,
grade
'cause
that
we're
I'm
getting
still
close
friends
to the
with
end,
now,
but,
and another good friend,
we
girlfriend
have
that I
Jewish
met in the 5th
people
grade
very
that I'm
involved
still
in
friends
the
with now.
faith. What's your take?
And
well, I just wanted to talk a
we
little
did
bit
have
about
in
how
high
I
school,
got
you know,
interested
the
in interfaith
little
cliques
my-
and things like
Sure.
that. But
That's what we do in high school.
Right, that's
we were in
right.
England, my family and I.
But I got married
Uh,
young at
my
19 before I'd even
ex-husband, one
really
of
gone to
5,
college, other
and,
than 1 year in San
this-
Francisco
his
State
siblings all converted to
University,
Christianity when
and,
we were in England. I
So
sort of
there
lost
was
track
some, battles
with the
between
friends when I was in England for 8
the
years.
family about that.
And was your
And,
husband a
I guess
high
I
school
came to the
sweetheart?
awareness not only from that,
No,
but from
actually,
living in England and
we
kind of
met
getting exposed
when I was
to
still in high school.
different
But he didn't go to the
cultures
high school that
that
I
there was
did.
a need to
I went
to
to
focus
I was
on
in
understanding
choir.
between
I like
faiths.
singing. And I
My
was in the a
favorite saying
cappella
is we all
choir
live
at
in the
Abraham
same
Lincoln
house,
High
we just
School
came
in
through
San
different
Francisco.
doors.
Exactly.
And I
That
sat
really
next to a
works
lady
well.
named Helen.
Now,
And she
if
invited
you could
me
just
to go
wave
to
a
the Jewish
magic
Community
wand,
Center in San Francisco,
fix
which I did.
something
It
in
was
the
a
world
Thursday night
or in
youth group
your
kind of thing.
society,
And that's where I
or
met my husband.
neighborhood, or you. Now, I won't ask you to
So-
sing, but can you remember
I
your
think it
school
would be,
song, and
improved
fight song, and things like that
communication
from high
and forging a
school?
way to peace,
Oh,
both
not
in
really,
the-
no.
Okay, we just went through that in
Isn't
a
it
family
interesting?
conversation as to whether or not
Okay.
we could do that again after 45 or 50
very
years.
Yeah, no.
We had a good laugh.
No, I know our mascot
be
was
to you.
Mustangs,
Thank
the
you,
Lincoln
same to you.
Mustangs.
Thank you very much, and thank
all
you
I
for being
remember
here. It's
about
been fun
that.
to visit with
So,
you.
do I
Time
understand that
flies
in
by
England
quickly.
you
So
then
thank you
farmed
very
or-
much. ranch?
Well, my ex-husband now, his uncle was an agribusinessman. He actually had a big agricultural operation near Stockton, and then his family separated, and he moved to England and leased 6,000 acres of land from the National Coal Board in Northumberland, and he farmed half of it in barley and wheat. So he offered my husband a position on that operation, and so we thought we'd go over there for a year. But it didn't turn out that way because my husband decided to go to school and study. He was allergic to a wheat mite, a mite in the wheat when he was farming the wheat with his uncle. And so he decided he'd go into horticulture. And so he took a one-year class in horticulture in Yorkshire. And then he enrolled at a university, Bath University in Somerset, and was there for about 6 years altogether. So that's why we lived there so long.
You know, the coal country of England fascinates me. My ancestors are English, and my great-great-grandfather was a coal miner. But they could sort of get the coal out of the shallow ground as opposed in the United States. You know, we dig coal mines where shafts are 600 or 1,000 feet deep.
Right.
And when they began in England some years ago to do away with the coal mines and that, they just sort of plowed up, bulldozed over across, and let it be, and let the wild grasses grow, and, you know, away it went,
Right.
sort of thing. But coal was a big thing in
It was.
England
It
for
was.
hundreds of years.
That's right. In fact, speaking of coal, when we lived on the farm that my uncle had, the agriculture, I guess you don't call it a farm when it's that large, but anyway, the cottages had coal fireplaces, and the water tank was behind the fireplace, so that to heat your water, you had to have the fire on summer and winter alike, otherwise you didn't have hot water. And also when I hung out my wash, you'd see the black soot on the sheets, you know, because there were coal mines
Of course,
everywhere, you
of
know, all
course.
around. So it was kind of, I got very familiar with British coal.
Interesting
In some
approach.
ways, I didn't really want to be familiar with British coal. But anyway.
Now, if you met your husband at the Jewish Community Center, is that when you began to move toward the Jewish faith more and more?
Well, yes. When we decided to get married, we both agreed that we would raise our children in the Jewish faith. And I missed something when I told you earlier about the fact that my parents wanted me to be Catholic. I did get baptized Catholic. So by the fact that I was baptized, I had to, according to the temple where we were going to get married, be converted and go through an official conversion ceremony, although in terms of matrilineal descent in the Jewish faith, I'm really Jewish anyway, but the baptism kind of messed that up a little bit. So anyway, so I did convert, and then we got married, and we raised our children Jewish.
And how many children?
2,
A boy and a girl.
a boy and a girl.
And where are they these days?
They're both in Los Angeles, and they also have an interesting story. I don't know if I may as well go into that now. Is that all right?
Sure.
They were raised in. We raised them Reform. We went to. We lived in Watsonville when we came back from England, and we went to a temple in Salinas. It was a Reformed temple, and then when we came to the Sacramento area upon return from England, we went to B'nai Israel, which you're familiar with.
Right.
And so anyway, then my daughter, when she was starting college, she decided she wanted to go to Israel. So she went to Israel and she studied on a kibbutz. That's a, like a school. And she studied about Judaism and studied Hebrew, and she became very steeped in the very deep forms of Judaism, studying Kabbalah, the esoteric document and things. And when she came back, she decided she wanted to not be Reform anymore, but be an Orthodox Jewish person. And my son, who's older by 7 years, he also went to Israel following my daughter. And when he came back, he actually lived in Israel for 2 years. He's a chiropractor and practiced over there. When he came back, he also wanted to be Orthodox. So both of them live now in Los Angeles, and they live in an Orthodox Jewish community, which is, obviously very structured and observant.
Did that cause you any grief?
Not really. As being a deeply spiritual person or a religious person, I prefer spiritual because I'm kind of more broad-based thinking. I very much admire the reverence in Orthodox religions. I mean, they pray for everything. Everything, the eating, and they don't. On the Sabbath comes and they don't switch a light on. They don't cook. They have to have things pre-cooked before Sabbath, and they don't drive. And it's very strict, but they do observe the Sabbath, and it's a wonderful thing to have a day of the week where you're just not occupied with things of the world that much, other than just being with other people.
And did they see and learn that in Israel just by the way of life of people there versus what's happening in the Western world?
I think so, and also I think they felt a certain vibration, energy there that they really affiliated with, and they loved the people. They met some very inspirational people to them, rabbis and others who kind of encouraged them and gave them, some vision of what their religious life could be like. My daughter gives a good example when she was at B'nai Israel, and she was studying to be confirmed. They go through the bat mitzvah first and then the confirmation. But she was being confirmed, and she realized she didn't really know the meanings of the Hebrew words that she'd been learning. And she felt she just wasn't getting the depth out of what she was studying that she felt she should have. So she became more interested in trying to delve more deeply into things. And that was one thing that led her to the Orthodox faith, because, all Judaism studying is very important. Learning is very important in the Jewish faith, regardless of the sector of it. But in Orthodoxy, it's even more so.
Now, I'm personally fascinated by the fact that there are 15 million Jews in the world, which isn't a very big number when you consider billions of Muslims and Catholics and those things. But, and I also understand that the Holocaust brought that to a forefront, and we view Hitler as an evil, awful man. But Jewish people are strong and devout and believe. And once in a while, if you find one who says, well, I want to go to temple occasionally and stuff, you still couldn't drag the Jewishness out of he or she.
Right.
That's it's right. And so do you view that as that's just sort of inbred? Do you learn that at some point in your conversion to where you just become devout?
Well, I guess there's different ways to answer that. One, they talk about the diaspora. I can never say that word correctly, the diaspora. When, the Jewish people spread out all over the world. For, being persecuted in one area and then they moved to another. And so there's stories about, like the Jewish people in Africa, for instance. I don't remember what they're called, but there's a part of the Jewish faith Jewish people that went to Africa. And they just maintained their basic religious practices through centuries, and although it's more a nationality as well as a religion. It's an identity.
That's well said.
Yes,
and so I see that.
So it isn't something you just pass off like, I decided I'm going to move to from Presbyterian to Episcopalian or something. It's not like that. It's your identity, both religiously and what you're made of.
Well, that's a good answer. That's a good way to say that.
Okay.
Now, you have grandchildren?
Yes.
And so we can presume that they're being raised in a devout
And not only
Jewish
that, they're going
environment.
to an Orthodox school, Maimonides in Los Angeles. And they wear a kippah, little hat, you know.
Which is rather cute.
And not only
on the
that,
little ones.
they do musicals at that school. I just went to one, it was The Lion King, and they do it all in Hebrew,
Really
the whole musical in Hebrew.
impressive.
Very impressive.
What's your
I-
take on Fiddler on the Roof, the musical?
Oh, I love it. In fact, I'm going to go
So
see it
do
at
I.
Music Circus. It's coming up in August. I have tickets. It's very good.
It's a great musical.
It is.
All right, let's shift a little bit. How is the JCRC in Sacramento doing?
Well, we've gone through a transition. I'll back up a minute. I have been with JCRC for a year. And when I started, there was an executive director, and we also were in the midst of a controversy with an organization called BDS,
Right.
Boycott, Divest, and Sanction. And they're an organization that advocates for boycotting Israel for because of the Palestinians in the West
Correct.
Bank. And
We've followed that.
so, you know, they targeted the Natural Food Co-op in Sacramento, and the Natural Food Co-op carries things like matzah and soap and whatever, a few products, not very many products from Israel. But they made a big petition wrote to the board of the co-op to ask the board to boycott and not buy those Israeli products. So JCRC was highly involved in that, and actually got the board the board didn't approve the BDS position. So that was something that we were very active in at that last year. And since that time, there's been a change. There's not, the executive director isn't there. We're getting a new one in September, and we're actually, somehow I was asked to be vice chair, and another lady, Lydia Ingram, is chair. So we're just now developing our kind of plan, what we want to do with JCRC, Jewish Community Relations Council. It's basically the mission of JCRC is advocacy and education.
Have men mostly led the JCRC in recent times?
In terms of the director, I think so. Although there's the directors of the Federation, the Jewish Federation of Sacramento is kind of an umbrella group. You know, the JCRC is an arm of the Federation. But,
Well, I ask
yeah.
that because I think I'm strongly influenced in my own life by a wonderful wife, and I had a devout and terrific mother who has since passed on. My grandmothers both were dynamic women and bright and capable, and I've sort of enjoyed in society as women have come forward a little bit more. They bring the nurturing and some of the other things. Let me talk about soap for just a second, because I had this conversation not long ago.
Okay.
When I was a boy, my grandmother, who lived across the street, she made her own soap in a big wash tub and built a fire under it. And you'd put lard and this Felsnap, I think it was called,
Yes.
and a variety of things that went into it, and you had to keep the fire going, and so the kids got to help with that and all the stirring and the mixing. Eventually, that would be poured into molds, and it looked like little bread molds. You know, there'd be 10 or 12 of them, you know, and you'd have a big ladle, and it was hot, and you'd pour them in there. When those were cooled down, you could tip them over and dump them out like you would a cupcake or, you know, a loaf of bread. And that's what the little kids got to do, because it was cooled down. Nobody could get burned or hurt. You're away from the fire. And then you had to wrap up the soap. Grandma had these little wrappers that she bought somewhere. I don't know the history of that, but you'd wrap them up and stack them. And when she got a pretty good stack of 75 or 100 bars of soap, then we were done for the day. And I look back on
That's a
that.
lot of soap.
It is a lot of soap, but it was distributed. You know, she had adult children and that living in the little town. And, you know, that was her soap. That was the way she made it. It was her brand, her thing, and it's what her family all liked. And you didn't sell it or give it to anybody else, and other people didn't give you their soap. It was your soap, your brand. You knew what it was and how it worked. And those kinds of things in traditions of families and small groups, whether it's soap or something else, are important. They've been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And I've noticed that, you know, each time I'm sitting with one of my Jewish friends and we just talk about routine things. Tradition, as Fiddler in the Roof,
Right.
tradition's
Right,
a big
that's
thing.
right.
It's
Yes,
it's
it
a
is.
big thing.
Right.
It's an important thing. So do you have family traditions?
Yes, we do. We usually every year have a seder, a family seder, and
Everybody enjoy that.
right,
and-
very much so.
yes.
Yes, and at Hanukkah, when they were growing up, we used to observe Hanukkah and have the Hanukkah, the menorah and presents every day for 8 days, which the children like.
Kids love that.
They love
of
that.
course.
Yes. Yeah, we just my children have always wanted to go to the temple every Sabbath. They've been, pretty even before they went to the change to Orthodox. They were always quite religious, I'd say.
How many synagogues are practicing in the Greater Sacramento area?
I'd have to run them off. It's Temple Orishon in Orangeville, and there's B'nai Israel and Mosaic Law. B'nai Israel is a Reform, and Mosaic Law is conservative. And Orishon, I think it's Reform. I'm not sure. And then there's the Knesset Israel is Orthodox, and the Chabad is Orthodox, and Beth Shalom is Reform. Did I miss any? I don't think so.
5 or
Is
6
that
or
about 5 or
7 there.
6?
I should
Yeah,
have
something
counted.
like that. Yeah.
And if you're Jewish, do you say
Did I mention B'nai Israel? I hope I did.
you did?
Oh, good. Thank you. I wouldn't want to miss it.
If you're Jewish, do you say I'm going to go to the conservative or I'm going to go to the Orthodox and I'll stay there, or might you go to different places, or do you go to one that's closest to you in the neighborhood you live?
That's very individual, that question. But, it's very subjective. I know several people who belong to one temple and then have an associate membership in another, because they might want to, like someone I know belongs to B'nai Israel, the Reform Temple, but sometimes wants to go to Mosaic Law, which is a little more, the conservative, which is a little more observant. So just kind of a very individual thing. Some people have a preference for one rabbi over another, so they'd be willing to drive across town to get to hear that person. So just
Now, as opposed to being Jewish, from your posterity and your heritage and flowing in both directions, to practicing Jewish faith religion, would you say the Jewish faith religion in Sacramento is in good shape and alive and well and doing well?
it is. There's JCRC is one of our roles is to try to build community, Jewish community.
Good.
And in Sacramento particularly, it's a congregation-driven community. So the congregations are very active and they do a lot of good things. But there's something we see that there's a need for more coming together as a community, and that's something Lydia Ingren, who's the chair of Jewish Community Relations Council now, and I have been talking about how we could improve that, to build community and also education about Judaism itself, and also education about Israel. And there's an effort to have a sister city with Ashkelon in Israel. Don't ask me where that is exactly. I don't know exactly where it is in Israel. But
that's
anyway,
a cool concept.
It is, yes. So there's a lot of things going on. And the other priority we have is interfaith, building interfaith, and that's something I'm very interested in. In fact, I'd like to talk about that a little bit, about my interest.
Okay, I'll come
in
back
that.
to it in just a second.
Okay.
The Interfaith Council, the last several Christmases and Easters, which of course are Christian holidays, have gathered sleeping bags to give to the homeless out on North C Street. And so far, I'd say the last 2 years, we've gathered about 3,000 sleeping bags and about 1,500 mats. And when the people when they're cold, a new sleeping bag, a thick warm one's a wonderful thing. And the Jewish people have rolled in on a couple of occasions with sleeping bags to help out, and I'm not only impressed, but I'm touched that they would step up on a Christian holiday. Now, let's talk interfaith for just a moment because we're getting close to the end. But we have Jewish people very involved in interfaith. What's your take?
Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I got interested in interfaith. When we were in England, my family and I, my ex-husband, one of 5, and his siblings all converted to Christianity when we were in England. So there was some, battles between the family about that. And I guess I came to the awareness not only from that, but from living in England and kind of getting exposed to different cultures, that there was a need to focus on understanding between faiths.
My favorite saying is we all live in the same house. We just came through different doors.
Exactly.
And it really works well.
Exactly.
Now, if you could just wave a magic wand and fix something in the world or in your society or neighborhood or view, what would that be?
I think it would be improved communication and forging a way to peace, both in the community and in the world.
Isn't it interesting that in the name of God we have so much war?
Yes.
Very, very interesting. Well, peace be to you.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here. It's
you're
been
welcome.
fun to visit with
Yeah,
you.
fun to visit
The
with you,
time
too.
flies by quickly, so
does.
thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.